Welcome to Math 1314, Week 3, Practice Questions. To warm up, we will working on solving quadratic equations and rational equations. Let's start. So last week we practiced on the zero factor. And let's review on it. The product of some factors equals 0. In this case, we say two factors A and B. Factor A can be 0, or factor B can be 0, or both of them is 0. So in this case, we have two factors as well. The first one is x plus 73. We set it equals 0. Or the second one, 89x minus 51 equals 0. X plus 73 equals 0. We want to isolate x on the left hand side, so I subtract 73 both sides. On the left side, we have 73 minus 73, that's 0. We only have x on that side. And minus 73 on the right hand side. For the factor 89x minus 51, we want to isolate the x term, right? So we're adding both sides by 51. That's 0. We're left with 89x equal 51. Alright, now to isolate x, I divide both sides by 89. X 89 divided by 89 is 1. 1 times x is x, so on the left hand side we only have x. On the right hand side we have 51 over 89. And remember, the 51 and 89 doesn't have the common factors to simplify, so we keep it as is. So for these questions, we see that we have the product of x times 5x plus 1. So the highest, when we FOIL or when we distribute the x inside the parenthesis, we will have the highest degree is 2. It means we have a quadratic equations. Now let's do it. So we have x times 5x is 5x squared. X times 1 is x. And this side is 6. Now I want to move the 6 to the left hand side because I want to keep my quadratic standard form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So I will subtract 6 both sides. On the right hand side now is 0. So rewrite one more time. 5x squared plus x minus 6 equal 0. Remember this one have 3 terms, so we can try the AC method. What is 2 number multiply equal a is 5 times negative 6 is c, that negative 30, and also that 2 numbers add up to 1. For 30, we can have 1 30, 2 15, 3 10, 5 and 6, right? So which one can form 1? This one, right? But then we have the negative 30, so of course this one have to be negative 5 and 6, because when 6 subtract 5 is equal 1. So we have 1 and 2 numbers, so we'll have 5x squared. Remember, x is writing in terms of minus 5x plus 6x, right? Minus 6 equal 0. Now we group it, that 2. So for the first group, we have 5x in common. We take it out at the common factor. We're left with x minus 1. And making sure every time we factor, we just distribute it back in to see if we have the original one. Okay, for the second group of 6x minus 6, we take 6 in common. So as 6, we left with x minus 1 equals 0. Now x minus 1 is in common, so we take it out again. One more time, factoring 5x plus 6 equals 0. Now we have the form of 0 factor. So x minus 1 equals 0, or 5x plus 6 equals 0. X minus 1 equals 0. We add 1 both sides. On this side is 0, left with x equal 1. 5x plus 6 equals 0. We subtract 6 both sides. This one 0. 5x equal negative 6. Divide both sides by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 1 times x is x minus 6 over 5. Number 3. So remember, we have to combine like term first. So now we will subtract both sides by 6. What we have left is negative 3x plus a square equal negative 225. So now we want to get rid of the negative 3. We want to isolate the whole binomial square. So we will divide both sides by negative 3. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. So on the left hand side, we left with 3x plus a square equal, this one negative divided by negative, make it positive. 225 divided by 3 is 75. We take 22 divided by 3 is 7. 7 times 3 is 21, so 22 subtract 21 is 1. And then drop 5 down, we have 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now we see this one is square root property. That when we have x squared equal a, x equal plus or minus square root of a. So we can take that 3x plus a, that our x equal plus or minus square root of 75. And what is square root of 75? That is square root of 25 multiply square root of 3. 3/4, right? And square root of 25 is 5. So that 5 square root of 3. So redraw one more time. Now we want to isolate x, so we subtract a from both sides. That's 0. 3x equal minus a plus or minus 5 square root of 3. Now we divide both sides by 3. X equal minus 8 plus or minus 5 square root of 3 over 3. Okay, now we have number 4. This looks like a quadratic equation, so we need the standard form of x squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So we will subtract 32x, subtract 68 both sides. So we will have 2x squared subtract 32x subtract 68 equal, on the right hand side that makes 0, 0. we realize that we have the coefficients are even. All the coefficients are even in this case, so we reduce with a factor of 2, divide both sides by 2. We'll have x squared minus 16x minus 34 equals 0. Now we can try completing the square because we have b is even and a is 1. So x squared minus 2 times x times 8 plus a squared minus 34 equal a squared. Remember the a squared, we add one side, we have to add another side. And also the first three terms, this one from x minus a squared. We drop the 34 equal 64. Now we want to isolate the square of the binomial. We're adding 34 both sides. This side we have 4 plus 4 is 8, 6 plus 3 is 9, so 98. On this side we left with x minus a squared. Now we can use the square root property, right? So x minus 8 equal plus or minus square root of 98. And for the first practice, we have square root of 98. We're working on that already. That is 49. Square root of 49 multiplied by 2, right? So square root of 49 times square root of 2. And that will be 7 square root of 2. So rewrite one more time, x minus 8 equal plus or minus 7 square root of 2. Now we isolate x by adding 8 both sides. That 0 left with x equal 8 plus or minus 7 square root of 2. Number 5. Remember how we find the least common denominator? So for every single denominator, we write it down and break it into small blocks at prime number. So like 10 equal 2 times 5. What is the prime number? We will use 2 first, then 3, then 5, then 7, 11. We use all of those first. We try 2 first, and then 3. We break it down into small block at the prime block number, right? So the next one is 15. 15 is 2. Nope, we cannot divide by 2. So we divide by 3. We got a 3 times 5. Next is 6. 6 is 2. Yes, 2 times 3. Now, every time we go on the right hand side of the equal side, we will take one number. Okay, only once. one time. So 2, the first one I choose 2. So we look, we see this one have another factor of 2, so we just take it 1 already, so we don't need the second one. So 5, this one cross, now 3 left, right? So 2 times 5 is 10, times 3 is 30. Now we multiply both sides by 30. And where the 30 is the least common denominator. Okay, so we have to distribute it, right? 3 times. So 30 divided by 10 is 3x squared plus 30 divided by 15 is 2x. 30 divided by 6 is 5. That equals 0. Anything multiplied by 0 is 0. So now from a fractions coefficients, we find easier way, nicer look for that equations. And now we can solve for it. Okay, so we're checking on, first we're checking on the square root property. That more than 2 term. Second, 0 factor. Checking for A and C. Method. 5 times 3, 15. And then they have to add up to 2. For the 15, you will have 2 negative number, product of 2 negative number, or 2 positive number. And 15 is 1 times 15 or 3 times 5. And those numbers could not add up to 2. With the negative and negative, negative 3 and negative 5 make it negative 8. 3 and 5 make it 8. So the 0 factor doesn't work. Now we're checking on the completing the square. So A is 3, it's different from 1. And then B divided by A is 2 divided by 3, that's the fractions. It's different from the integer, so we don't use that. We go straight to the quadratic formula. If we remember that, we have x equal minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Alright, let's plug in. So we have x equal minus b is minus 2 plus or minus square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 3 and then times c is 5. Divide by 2 times 3. Now we have to simplify it. Minus 2, copy it down. Square root of 4, 2 squared is 4, minus 4 times 3 times 5. The easiest way to do the product of 4 times 3 times 5 is multiply 4 and 5 first. So 4 times 5 is 20, times 3 is 60. 2 times 3 is 6. Rewrite one more time. Inside the square root, we have 4 subtract 60 is negative 56. divide by 6. Remember, we have square root of negative number. That gives us square root of negative 1 times square root of 7 times 2 times 4. 7 times 8 is 56. So break down the 8 into 2 times 4. Negative 1 is I. We take the 4 out of the square root, so we have 2i square root of 14. Now we rewrite the answer again. Minus 2 plus or minus 2i square root of 14 over 6. On the denominator, we see we have the factor of 2, so we take the factor of 2 out. We have left with negative 1 plus or minus I square root of 14 divided by 6 is 2 times 3. Now we can cancel the factor of 2 and left with the answer x equal negative 1 plus or minus I square root of 14 over 3. Alright, number 6. So at first we looking for the common factor in these equations, and we see all the terms have the x in common. So we take that x out. We left inside with x squared. X times x squared is x cubed. Minus, we take x from negative 5x squared. We left with 5x. And subtract 14 equals 0. Now we see the x squared minus 5x minus 14 is a quadratic equations. So let's write on this side x squared minus 5x minus 14. Set it equals 0. We have two factors right here. So we can use the zero factor theorems to solve for that, right? So the first one is x equals 0, or that x squared minus 5x minus 14 equals 0. So the first solutions is x equals 0. Now we're working on this one. We're checking for the square root property. It's not work because we have more than 2 terms. Number 2, use the zero factor again. Let's see if we can use the AC method to solve for this. So that will be negative 14, a equal 1, b is negative 5, and c is negative 14. Then that two numbers add up to negative 5. Negative 14, we can have 7, negative 7, and 2. They add up to negative 5. So we can break that down. So x squared minus 7x plus 2x minus 14 equals 0. We group the first two terms and the last two terms together. So in common of x, we have x minus 7 left. In common of 2, we have x minus 7 on the second root. Now the common factor is x minus 7. We take x minus 7 out, we have left with x plus 2. That equals 0. Now we can use the zero factor theorem. X minus 7 equals 0, or x plus 2 equals 0. We add 7 both sides. We have x on the left hand side equals 7. Or we minus 2 both sides. That's 0. Left with x equal negative 2. So we have 3 solutions for this equations. Because we have the higher degree is 3, so that makes sense. We noted that we have the degree of 2, so we might have the quadratic equation form. So this one we see that we have some like term. This is the number and the number, so we can combine like term. So let's do that first. Subtract 5 both sides. We have left with negative 2, 13x minus 17 square equal 32. Now we divide both sides by 2, negative 2. This is 1, so we left with 13x minus 17 square. That equal negative 16. Now we can use the square root property. If we have x squared equal a, x equal plus or minus square root of a. So 13x minus 17 equal plus or minus square root of negative 16. Square root of negative 16 is square root of 16 times square root of negative 1. And square root of 16 is 4, square root of negative 1 is I, 4i. We plus 17 both sides. That's 0. So 13x equal 17 plus or minus 4i. Now we divide both sides by 13. We have x equal 17 plus or minus 4i over 13. Remember, this one is that value. Okay, number 8. So we realize that we have 4 terms and the higher degree is 3. But we always want our equations have the right hand side equal 0. So we have to somehow move all of the term on the right hand side to the left hand side. So to do that, I subtract both sides by 6x squared, subtract 35x. Both sides. So on the right hand side, we have that one cancel, that one cancel. So this one will be equal 0. That's our target. And then we have just copy down. 5x cubed minus 6x squared minus 35x plus 42. So you can see that 35 is the factor of 5 and 7. 42 is the factor of 6 and 7. So I can group the first two and the last two. So for the first group, we have x squared in common, so left with 5x minus 6. For the second group, we have negative 7 out, left with 5x minus 6 equals 0. To making sure that's right, we have to distribute it back to see if we get the original one. So negative 7 times 5x is negative 35x. Negative 7 times negative 6 is 42, positive 42, and that's good. Now continue, we see that the 5x minus 6 is the common factor. We take it out, left with x squared minus 7. Now we can use the zero factor theorems, right? So 5x minus 6 equals 0, or x squared minus 7 equals 0. We plus 6 both sides. That cancel. We're left with 5x equals 6. Divide both sides by 5. X equal 6 over 5. That one root. We need 2 more because our degree is 3. So we have 3 total solutions. So this one, look at that, we have 2 terms. So we have one x squared and one number. So we can use the square root property to solve for this problem. Just add 7 both sides. This one we have left with x squared equals 7. Now x equal plus or minus square root of 7. This is 2 solutions, the total of 3. Now we go to a new topic. If we have fractions a over b equal c over d, then we can rewrite them as a times d equal b times c. The cross product is the same. So what does the cross mean? You cross a with d equal b with c. And making sure in this case, b have to be different from 0, d have to be different from 0, because this is denominator. In this case, we see that 8 and 7 is the denominator and that the number different from 0, so that's good, right? We don't have to be care about that. But then we have this one is our A, our B, our C, and our D. Yes, so we have to rewrite them again. So 7 times 5x minus 7, that the first cross, equal 8 times 6x plus 5. Alright, now we distribute 7 times 5x, 35x, minus 7 times negative 7 minus 49, equal 8 times 6, 48x, 8 times 5, positive 40, now we will subtract both sides by 35x to combine the term. Then subtract both sides by 40. On this side, the 35x subtract 35x is 0. Negative 49 minus 40 is the big negative, right? So 4 plus 4 is 8. 9 plus 0, 89. Equal 48 minus 35x is 13x. 8 minus 5 is 3. 4 minus 3, 8 minus 5 is 3, and then 4 minus 3 is 1. Now we can divide both sides by 13. And x equal minus 89 divided by 13. Alright, for the next questions, remember we have the cross product. AD equal BC. In this case, we have the denominator is x plus 7 and 6. 6 is okay, but x plus 7 could not be 0. So we have the restriction value here is x plus 7 different from 0. Subtract both sides by 7. We have left with x different from negative 7. And remember that value to evaluate at last step. Alright, now we're using the AD equal BC is 6 times x plus 5 equal x times x plus 7. We always write one term multiplied to the parentheses that easier to distribute or to have a better look on calculations. 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 5 is 30. Equal x times x is x squared. X times 7 is plus 7x. Now we see that the higher degree is x squared. It means we have quadratic equations. So we would like to move all of the term on one side. I will move to the right hand side and switch the side. So that will be easier. Subtract 6x, subtract 30, both sides. Alright, now on the left hand side now is 0. On the right hand side I have x squared minus 6x. 6x and 7x is x. Positive x. Minus 30. Alright, and I can redraw it as switch the side. That's the same, right? But it have like a better, a familiar look. Alright, so now we can check. We have 3 terms. We could not do the square root property. So we check for the second one, 0 factor theorem. Now check for AC method. We have A times C is negative 30, right? And something plus another number is 1. What it should be? It should be positive 6 and negative 5. If it's negative 6, you will have them add up to negative 1. So because it's 1, so it has to be positive 6 and negative 5. So we will redraw it and break down the B term. The coefficient with the x term, this one will be plus 6x minus 5x, that comes from here, minus 30 equals 0. Now we group the first 2 and the last 2. So for the first 2, we have x in common, and then left with x plus 6. For the second group, we have negative 5 in common, left with x plus 6 as well. Now the common factor, x plus 6, left inside x minus 5. That equals 0. So we set x plus 6 equals 0, or x minus 5 equals 0. This one we're using the 0 factor theorem. We minus 6 both sides, we have x equal minus 6. And we adding 5 both sides, we have x equal 5. Thank you for participating in this video. See you in part 2.